Welcome to week 35 of Cougs on Cougs. I am Jess. This is Mary. We are now 1-1.
I know, it's less exciting than it was last week, but a lot to be excited about, right?
Home game this Saturday. That's what I'm excited about. Yeah, I've almost moved on from what happened this weekend, but we're going to go back and tear open some wounds, I guess.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Our quote of the week comes from it's funny because it's referring to football, but it's from Michael Jordan. So it says, sometimes things may not go your way, but the effort should be there every single night. I think we just liked that because, we don't believe in moral victories, but we gave really good effort on Saturday, right?
I hate this conversation right now.
I know.
But yeah, when things don't go your way, like you have a pick six on the first play of the game and you have flashbacks to the Vegas Bowl, yeah, there's a couple ways you could react to that.
Like giving up and lying down and dying?
Right, but we didn't do that. And the effort was really good that whole game. It's not easy to go and play a game at Rice Eccles against your rival and keep it close.
And a really good team. Time for Talk of the Town.
First thing we're going to start with is basketball because that's still a thing.
It's coming.
Yep. So looks like the team is doing some bonding over the weekend.
This was really fun.
Yeah. So this is from Davin Gwynn's Instagram, and it's a picture of them hiking at Canaryville Falls.
Look, and they're all wearing their royal, probably for game day,
so
right?
Coordinated.
Right?
So
yeah.
that's lovely.
And then also we got a picture from Nick of that same hike. So
yeah, and I thought it was interesting that Eric Mika is there because he literally got married less than a week ago or 1 week ago.
This was really fun. It was from last week, and Mitch Matthews tweeted it out, and he said, "Happy anniversary, Tanner Mangum."
I love this so much.
It's really hilarious.
I want him to tweet this.
They look like a couple.
That's why I love it so much. I hope he tweets this out every single year.
Another thing that happened kind of earlier, before the game, we just wrote a really good article about our flag bearers, and they were all from the
2016 the last team to beat Utah at Rice Eccles 10 years ago. Wow. Now it might be another 12 before that happens, unfortunately. But here they are before the game with their flags getting ready. So that's Cameron Jensen, Brian Keel, and Johnny Harleen.
It's a good group. We were hoping they could inspire him. They probably did inspire him on some level, but, not enough to get the W. So. Jimmer.
Jimmer was at the game wearing his royal, and apparently he took some pictures with Utah fans, but he made them wear BYU gear.
Yeah.
BYU hats.
Well, I think Whitney said that. I don't know if it was on a tweet or on Facebook, but she said they were all really good sports. And we've heard on several accounts that being at Rice Eccles was less hostile than it has been in past years. I still am not mad I didn't go, but whatever.
It probably helps that they beat us 6 times in a row, so they may be over it. I don't know.
It's true. This tweet was really funny, and it comes from Tasha. And she said, hashtag Pac-12 refs, which I'm still kind of confused. What was it? Big 12 refs on the field and Pac-12 refs in the booth?
Something like that.
Too many number 12s, not enough Tanner Mangum. That's my favorite number 12, just saying. But Tasha tweeted this picture of Cosmo literally high-fiving a child, and then the referees calling it targeting. Because basically the refs were calling everything targeting on Saturday, right? Too much.
Yeah, that was the fun part of that game, wasn't it? So this is from Butch Pau after the game talking about Coach Kalani. So this is a quote that we liked. It says, and this comes from Zach Kicken, who tweeted this out. Seeing Kalani angry out on the field lets us know that as a coach, he cares for us as players.
So that's how they interpreted that. So anyone who's getting mad at Kalani for showing that emotion, don't.
Whatever.
Some good news from Jamal. He did tweet after the game, and his mom also said that he was fine, but Jamal said he's good, that he'll be ready for next week, that he's proud of his team, nothing but hurt. So I'm pretty sure that was just an ankle contusion, and a contusion, I think, is a fancy word for a bruise. It's not good, obviously, but it's not a tear, it's not a break. So.
Yeah, and they said he was feeling nauseous too. UCLA this week, and then the week after, we are playing at West Virginia, but it's actually being played in Washington, D.C.
FedEx Field, baby.
We got a time for that. That's at 1:30 Mountain Time.
We have a very special guest with us right now, all of the way from across the pond. Isn't that what they say?
That's what they say.
Yes.
So this is Colin Rivera.
Hello.
He is at Mr. Colin Riv on Twitter. We will put that handle up for you down in the bottom left. Make sure to give him a follow. He is a huge BYU fan. believe it or not, from
It's
across
true.
the pond.
I know. I feel like my accent's going to take away all of my my credibility. But.
It's absolutely not. It's going to add to it.
True.
So we're going to coach from the couch with Colin. But before we get into that, let's just get like a really brief rundown. I mean, what is your BYU connection?
Oh, I went to BYU, so that's like the pretty basic one,
Okay, right.
But yeah, I mean, I came over here to America to go to school. I served my mission out here, and because I didn't grow up here, I don't have any sort of allegiances to a professional team and to any sort of NFL team.
Right.
And so going back to England once I graduated, I need to stay in touch with my American sports, and obviously BYU is the only team in America that I actually have a connection to, an emotional one. So yeah, I've brought the diehard Cougar fandom to London.
We like it. The world is our campus. So you weren't a huge BYU fan growing up.
No, I didn't really know anything about BYU growing up. It was my first game, I think, was the Colorado State home game, 2009, and I was just like, this is magical.
Ooh.
What is happening? Just
Magical
that sold-out stadium, the
Max
student
Hall.
section. I was just like, I'm sold. Brilliant.
Awesome.
Was that your first football game?
That was my first,
ever?
Wow.
my first football game.
Wow, so
Good
we're
game.
your first and only true love. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that too.
it's a pure love.
Did you go to the rest of the games that
I
season?
did,
Like
yeah.
after that?
I did.
So wait, I
did.
have to ask,
It was
who's
great.
your favorite player to watch?
To watch right now?
No, when you first started.
When I first started, I mean, Andrew George.
Okay,
All
classic.
right.
The play,
solid.
right?
Appropriate for this week.
Oh,
I'd say.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
sure. As appropriate as anything is. All right, so should we get into it then?
Yeah.
Yes,
Coach Rivera and Coach Tyler.
Coach Blanchard.
We forgot to call each other Coach last week. Sorry, Carson
Fail.
and Ryan.
Hey, look, I have a whistle this week.
She's really
I
official.
won't blow it though.
Please
Me
don't.
too.
Yeah.
My kids are sleeping. Okay, let's do this. So, starting with what went right from our rivalry game with the Utes in Salt Lake City on
Yeah.
Saturday.
That was
Let's
a
start with you, Colin.
20-19 loss.
What
in
was
Sorry,
case you
right?
Coach
forgot.
Rivera.
We don't like to remind you.
The game that we have to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, what went right? I mean, the easy thing to talk about, I guess, is the turnover battle. All week, that was the talk of the town, right? Was who's going to win the turnover battle? We haven't won the turnover battle in years against Utah, and obviously we remember what happened in the bowl game last year. And so I get off the plane and I'm refreshing my phone, like driving to a watch party to watch the game, and I'm like, cool, first play of the game, another turnover. But actually, it ended up turnover-wise being really good for BYU, and so I think that was a really good takeaway from the game, is that our defense now doesn't just make stops, but actually forces turnovers against a good team like Utah. So I think that's
6
definitely
turnovers
positive.
was insane. My thing that went right that I really loved was the trick play on the fake field goal. Perfectly executed by Mitch Juergens and Jake Oldroyd, and then Corbin Kaufusi of all people.
Yeah.
And shout out to our long snapper, Matt Foley.
Yes, and Matt.
Really
sorry, cannot forget Matt.
Trick-worthy snap.
Yes, it was. So, I mean, I don't think anybody saw that coming. How do you expect to see a pass like that?
You
to
don't.
Corbin
I
Kaufusi of all
definitely
people?
thought it was going to be 3 points. My thing that went right, I really liked the intensity on the sidelines. And obviously, the 2 examples I'm thinking of are the 2 that everyone's been talking about, where Tanner rushed on from the sideline to congratulate Taysom, which I said on my Twitter is just the most Tanner thing. It is so in character for him, the backup quarterback, to be so excited for this guy that's starting over him. He just couldn't contain it and had to run on the
not
field
even
and
thinking.
give him his high five. We made that into a GIF, so be sure to check that out. And then also Kalani Sitake. So there was just, in that little time period from the time Kai got ejected to the time McChesney got ejected also, in between those 2 ejections, you had an interception from Francis Bernard, right?
Yep.
And Coach Sitake just lost his mind.
I know.
Like, he was so stoked. And he ran, well, there was the intensity there. And then there was the intensity when Kai got ejected, which was the other side of the spectrum where he was so ticked. And so Tanner and Coach Sitake both got the 15-yard penalties called on them for unsportsmanlike conduct there, which is ironic because, yes, I suppose it's unsportsmanlike, but we see it as the ultimate sportsmanship for your team, right?
Yep, fighting for your team, your players.
So that was a really long way to say that the intensity on the sidelines. It just seems like this team and the coaches are so jazzed about each other, and that's fun.
Well, there are a lot of things that did go right. It's harder to pick them out in a loss. But now let's turn to what went wrong, what could we improve for next game. Let's get into that. So should we start with Coach Rivera?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what could be improved? I'm going to go with turnovers again. I mean, I loved and I was so excited to see that we forced the turnovers 6 times in the game, but to only score 13 points from 6 turnovers is not enough, especially against a quality team like that. We might be able to afford to do that against a lesser opponent, but against Utah in their home stadium, it's just not enough.
That's how you beat teams that are better than you, I'd almost say, is that you force those turnovers and then you capitalize on them. It's just so funny, and it just is so perfect to illustrate the game that what went right and what went wrong are turnovers. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, forcing turnovers means we're forcing them to play our game. And that it completely throws them off their own game plan and flusters them, and to be able to just to do that and then kind of turn the ball back over to them by not scoring,
Okay, Coach Tyler.
For me, it was the O-line blocking. I mean, that's definitely a place where I think we can improve. They had a lot of struggle getting holes open for Jamal. We didn't see really any production from any other running backs. And then, at the end of the game, too, that final 2-point conversion might have gone a little bit differently if we had some different blocking assignments.
There were some mistakes made on the line for sure. Yeah. Not to blame them for the whole thing. But, I mean, there were also a lot of times when Taysom maybe didn't have quite as much time as we wanted him to. But as much as we'd like to see the O-line improve, I think we all agree that credit has to go to Utah's defensive line and their secondary, which were both just very, very good. And I think we didn't really know what to expect because they had only played SUU, but they looked like a top 30 defense. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, that line is really difficult for a new line like ours to go against. And they're still learning, and they'll fix those kinds of things. So,
and they did. I mean, we want to give them a shout out because they're learning and they're doing a good job, but
yeah, and they're working hard. I mean, can we also talk about that catch that Louis had that he
absolutely
ran for a few yards? It's too bad that got called back, but
it was still fun to watch.
Spectacular. I love that.
My thing that could improve kind of goes along with Coach Tyler's here. There were a lot of kind of breakdowns on offense, and I think that's kind of a given when you have 6 turnovers and 13 points to show for it. A big thing to me that I don't think enough people are talking about are dropped passes. Because for all the minimal amount of time that Taysom had, for the lack of the run game that we couldn't get started, there were enough passing opportunities where we really could have gotten probably at least 2 more touchdowns off of passes that were dropped. So our receivers I know they're doing the best they can, but I'd love to see them just kind of button that down. There was one pass that hit Mitch Juergens in the hand. He had an otherwise great game, but Moroni dropped some, Nick dropped some. So if we can just tighten that up, I think that would be good. And then I know a lot of people are complaining about Jamal's lack of carries. I don't necessarily agree with that because I think that Utah's defensive line is tough. I almost think we would have had a better shot in the air if we could have managed to create the space and hang on to the passes.
Yeah, and I think Utah's plan going in there was we need to stop Jamal, force Taysom to throw the ball, force the receivers to make a play. So they were just loading the box and they were purposely going after Jamal. And so Jamal was doing the best he can, but I think we kind of had to go through the air.
It's true.
I will say, same thing as last week, that I want to see more passes downfield. And we have, again, no passes for 20 or more yards. And apparently we're the only team in the country without a pass of 20 yards or more.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
and a lot of people are blaming Taysom for that, but it's not all his fault, guys. No. Come on. Colin, thanks for joining us for this segment.
Coach Rivera. Thank you to Coach Rivera, for coming on and doing Coaching from the Couch with us.
I will listen to that accent all day.
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully you enjoyed that accent. We certainly did. So, thanks, Colin.
Yes.
And then we are going to do a segment we haven't done for a while, and this is called Cougs in the Classroom. Now, if you don't remember...
We've never done it for football, right?
We haven't, yeah. So if you are new to our show or don't remember this, basically what we do is when there's a questionable call in a game, we will dig into the rule book and figure out exactly why it was maybe called that way and try to teach you something. So,
and questionable is a generous word for the targeting that they called on Kai Nacua. I mean, watching that live was just painful. And when the announcers even are saying, Kai Nacua should absolutely stay in this game, that's when there wasn't any doubt in anyone's mind except for apparently the refs who were watching it. So what happened, it was just a defensive play. And he went to tackle him, and it looked kind of like their helmets made contact initially, which I understand why you have to call targeting initially if it looks like their helmets made contact, because that's dangerous. But after you watch the play, you clearly see that Kai led with his shoulder and went into the guy's chest. But they called the targeting because of what it looked like initially, and then they went to review it and decided that it was targeting after all. You see Coach Satake get fired up, get the 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty. You see Kai get ejected from the game. He has to leave the stadium, and that also has ramifications for the first half of the UCLA game. Jess spent some time looking into this rule, and what did we learn?
Right. Well, we're going to focus on Kai, but this also applies to McChesney, who's also out for the UCLA game. The first thing you have to know about the situation is what a defenseless player is. That's what the refs ruled on the field, was that receiver was a defenseless player. What that means, it says in the rulebook, a defenseless player is one who, because of his physical position and focus of concentration, is especially vulnerable to injury. When in question, a player is defenseless. So that's a big reason why they call that.
When in question, right.
Yeah. So if you think it's questionable, he's a defenseless player. So that can then invoke some other rules. So examples that it gives of defenseless players include a receiver who's attempting to catch a forward pass.
Okay.
Or one who has completed catching but hasn't had time to protect himself yet. Okay. So that's sort of maybe comes into play right here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we get into what is the actual targeting rule. Okay, so
which is very ambiguous, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of issues with it. And this is still fairly new, and they tweak it every year, and they emphasize it, but it's been really hard
It's been a mess for everyone. A lot of teams have been very poorly negatively affected by this.
Right. Okay, so here's what it says. So targeting and making forcible contact to head or neck area of a defenseless player. That's what it's titled in the rulebook. So it says, no player shall target and make forcible contact to the head or neck area of a defenseless player,
which we talked about,
with the helmet, forearm, hand, fist, elbow, or shoulder. Okay, so that's the setup. And then it says, this foul requires that there be at least one indicator of targeting. Okay, so it's not just that they make contact or whatever, it has to be an indication of targeting. So then here's what targeting means. Okay, this is all connected. So targeting means that a player takes aim at an opponent for purposes of attacking with forcible contact that goes beyond making illegal contact or illegal block or a play on the ball.
Which is just complete BS.
Yeah, so it has to go beyond that somehow in some way that they don't really define, other than they give a few examples of what might be targeting. Okay, so let's go through these examples. So remember, you have to have an indication of targeting for this to be applied. So the first one is a launch, meaning that a player leaves his feet to attack the opponent by an upward and forward thrust.
So that's one no. Kai did not do that.
Yep, he did not leave his feet. Okay, so the other next example is a crouch followed by an upward and forward thrust to attack with forcible contact at the head or neck area, even though one or both feet are still on the ground.
No.
Did he hit his head or neck?
No.
Okay, so then the third one here is leading with helmet, shoulder, which is in here, forearm, fist, hand, or elbow. So we're talking about shoulder here because that's what he
led with his shoulder. That's true.
Okay, at the head or neck area.
No.
Okay, so that's where it becomes an issue, right? Was he leading at the head or neck area of that player, of the receiver?
Which we and the announcers all clearly thought no, and everyone on Twitter, no one thought he was doing that.
Yeah, so that's, and Trevor Maddich tweeted out a picture where you can see that it doesn't look like he did that at all. What happened was that the receiver, when he was coming down, he ducked his head.
It's momentum,
fast.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the issue with these defensive players like Kai, that they're in the middle of a play, they're going full speed, and what are they supposed to do when the guy dips his head at the last second?
He wasn't like bull rushing him though. Like he was just making a play.
There is a rule change this year that we talked about earlier in one of the previous episodes where up in the booth, they can call targeting even if it's not called on the field. That didn't happen here because we called it on the field. So then we get into the issue with the review. Okay, so there's a lot of talk during the game, after the game about, well, that was a terrible call. We're going to have it reviewed. Yeah, nationally, and then hopefully get it appealed so that he can play the first half. Okay, but as you know by now, that didn't happen, and Kai's still suspended.
And it can't happen, yeah.
So basically, what happens with these fouls is that the rulebook says that when there's a foul that's in the second half of the game that they're disqualified for, like this targeting one, that it has to be reviewed by the in-game replay officials. It actually says the disqualification must be reviewed by instant replay, and then it says again later, the replay official shall review all targeting fouls. Okay. And then you get to the appeal rule, where it says if a player's disqualified in the second half, then through the conference, they can, after the game, appeal to the national coordinator to review it and make a decision about whether or not it was targeting. But the thing with that appeal rule is that it only applies if instant replay is not used during the game, if it's not reviewed in the game. So basically, if it's reviewed in the game, which it has to be, if you have that capability, it has to be reviewed in game. And if it is, there's no appeal.
So that doesn't make any sense, because what game is there where there's not instant replay?
That's the question.
Man!
Yeah, are there games out there where they don't have replay anymore?
But that explains why there was so much confusion, because a lot of people thought that we would be able to review it and appeal it, and now the final word has come out that we won't.
And the way it's written in the rulebook is you can miss that, where it says, it says, you know, the appeal rule, but a couple paragraphs before that, it says if it's not reviewed in game, where it has to be, you know. So that whole paragraph basically won't really apply to almost any game, and that includes ours.
So hopefully that cleared some stuff up for you on the targeting rule. We still think it's complete BS.
It's really hard on these ones, especially when they're suspended for the first half of the next game, that it can't be reviewed after the fact, that it's an in-game decision, and, you know, they're trying to make it quickly to move the game along and all of that.
It just blows my mind,
rough.
though, because we all saw the replay, and there was no doubt in any of our minds. But anyway, we hope to see Kai and McChesney come back in the second half against UCLA with a bunch of fire and ready to get some revenge on UCLA. Okay, that's what we've got for today. As for what's next, BYU plays UCLA like we have talked about, so that's a big game, another really good Pac-12 opponent. That kickoff is set for 8:15 p.m. Mountain Time, and that is going to be on ESPN2 if you can't make it.
I'm really excited to be in the stadium for that, especially with having Taysom Hill there.
Yes.
First game at home in a couple of years.
We'll both be there.
Yeah, super excited. Should be awesome. And tailgating before the game will be in the lot that's by Baskin Robbins.
Yeah, it's
There's a
moved
parking
for
lot.
construction reasons or something.
Yeah.
It's a little further. We'll put up that picture of the map for you, but it's worth the hike. It's a lot of fun to hang out with such a concentrated group of BYU fans.
Yeah, so come join.
Yeah.
Should be good.
Also, very important, and we want to say this very clearly, what to wear to the game, because we are attempting to stripe the stadium, and we have faith and confidence that we can do this, but there has been a little bit of misinformation going around.
Yes.
And sorry that we spread a little bit of it, but we were just
Not our fault.
reporting what we were told.
Okay.
So the official word is the odd sections and
Are
wear
blue.
navy. Odd sections wear navy. I'm going to say that like 2 more times. Odd sections wear navy. Odd sections, like 3. Is that a section? Anyway, I'm not going to teach you about odd numbers.
103,
Wear navy.
107.
Even sections and the rock wear white.
The Rock always wears white.
Yes, but even sections
Right.
wear white. We can do it. You have plenty of time
faith in you.
to think about this difficult information. Let it marinate in your mind. Pick out the right shirt. You can do it.
Our show is brought to you this week by Leather Pants.
Not just leather pants, nice leather pants,
leather pants.
right? Oh, Kyle Whittingham. And our second sponsor is Mitch Juergens and his perfect quarterback rating. May you always stay loyal to the white and blue. For Jess, I'm Mary. We'll see you next week.